I just want to continue from the tangent KG left off. Issues of power, engineering stuff, and sometimes for force majeure reasons, we could be having experiences like this. But it's not just about having experiences like this, but it's the abnormality of it and how maybe often these things happen. I would want to believe that the engineers, as the Grid Corps and other supporting agencies, are up to the task, because when these things have gone wrong, they have been able to find a solution. But one of the things that I also want them to look at going forward was something that I experienced, and I'm sure so many people who use a lot of the major routes this morning would attest to. As for the feeder routes and those communities, the street lights are not even there, so that one you can't even have a conversation about. But at least the major routes in our part of the world, where we get a lot of sunny weather. I know the weather has been relatively cold in the last few days, but every now and then we still feel the intensity of the heat. I'm not too sure we are very happy with that wasting away. Elsewhere, they are very particular about getting energy from multiple sources, whether it's from hydro, whether it's from wind, whether it's from solar, or whether it's from nuclear or any other power source that they can generate that. We don't necessarily need to plug in these street lights onto the Akotobo grid and other grids. We can power them through solar energy. Even when the sun is intensely hot, a lot of our street lights are not working. And in times like these, this is when it becomes extremely important. For those of you who use the streets anywhere from 4 going, when the lights went off, the roads were really dark. If your light rays were not at a certain level, trust me, you couldn't see beyond a certain distance. You just could not see beyond a certain distance. So if at some point we still do not pay attention to solar and we are only dependent on the little that we have, it's going to be consumed and it will not be enough to go around. There are still so many parts of this country that do not get electricity 24 hours. When you live in Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, Takrade, possibly Ho as well, you think that's the whole of Ghana. No, there are so many parts of the country that is still not on a national grid. Not to talk about basics like street lights on our major routes, so that we can use some of the intensity of the sun to support it in that direction. But the other thing I want to talk about is something that I saw yesterday, and I was just asking myself, why in this country we do not seem to have a national developmental agenda, but we only have an agenda for the political party that is in office, and when they are out of office, maybe, just maybe, funding that was either allocated to the project was wasted, or funding was not made available to the project. That is why it is in the state in which it is. Someone, a friend of mine actually, sent me a picture of the hospital that today, if it had been completed, would have been the Koforidua government hospital. For those of you who would recall, in 2020, and I picked a quote of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo at the time. This is 2020. This is not 2024 when he was exiting office. In one of the speeches that he gave in line with the improvement of the Koforidua Regional Hospital, this is what he said: that this project must be completed within 36 months. Now, from 2020 to 2023 is exactly 36 months. But if you go to that same location where the construction of this hospital started, what you see is an eyesore. Yesterday, when my friend in Cove Town sent me pictures of this, what I asked him to do was to send me videos as well, if it was possible. And within a few minutes, he drove to the location and sent me photos, because he had sent me videos, because he lives and works in Koforidua. Koforidua is not one of those big regional capitals with a crazy population. No, Koforidua has always been relatively quiet, relatively small, and not too many people. The whole of Koforidua has only 2 seats. As in, it used to be only 1 seat, Koforidua, for a very long time, before it was demarcated into 2 seats, New Job in North and New Job in South. So it only has 2 constituencies. That's capital of the Eastern region. There are so many bigger towns in the Eastern region that probably even have more numbers in terms of population than Koforidua. I'm not too sure what the planners of the states saw and decided that it should go there, but over the years it served as a regional capital. So it was only wise and it was only proper that whatever was there was upgraded. And do you know what? We're going to spend up to 70 million euros on the construction of the hospital. The pictures I saw yesterday made me very sad. And it made me very sad for a reason. For those of you who use the stretch from Ayi Mensah all the way, do you see the number of people? When I was a kid and I had cousins who were at Ibri Girls, when you went past Adenta, it was literally all bush all the way to Ibri Girls. Today, the number of people who have moved to live within anywhere in Adenta all the way to Ibri and even beyond, who come to work in Accra sometimes, would amaze you. From Ibri, Ketase, no, let me start even from Ketase, Ahwease, Konkonru, Ibri, Mamfe, Tutu, and all of those communities there. The number of people who have moved there, built there, and come to work in Accra and work within those environments would amaze you. And there are some who live and work in Koforidua, but who live in these areas. The point I want to make is that demand for facilities like that are getting bigger and bigger, with people moving within a certain distance of facilities like that. So a time is going to come where people who live on this stretch may not necessarily be able to come all the way to Accra to access medical care, and will possibly be looking at the Koforidua Regional Hospital as another alternative. Because when you go past Mamfe, that road to Koforidua in itself is very bad. I see that every now and then they are working on it, but it is relatively shorter to go there than to come to Accra to get some level of assistance. So if we committed 70 million euros to a project like that, and 6 years down the line, for a project that should have finished in 2023, in 2026, it is an eyesore, and it is as if nothing is happening there. You're asking yourself a lot of questions. One, how much was sunk into the project? How come that by 2023 this project was not done? And what were the plans to finish this project after 2023 when it was not done? And now that we are in 2026, are there any plans by the current administration to ensure that this facility is attended to? Because I would want to believe that we've already sunk some millions of euros into this project. Who is supervising this project? Who was given this project? How much money was made available to him? How much money is still left for the completion of the hospital? Because this is what we're doing, and it's not different from what we're seeing with Afari in Kumasi. We would leave the facility will be rotting, materials will be stolen, there will be all kinds of issues with the building, and then at some point we may need more money to finish the construction of the same hospital. So for a project that was valued about 70 million, at some point we may need more than that to complete that same hospital, because it did not appear that we had a plan to start and finish the construction of that new hospital. And for me, it is unfortunate. If we did not have the money, why the start? If we had the money, who was directly responsible? The fact that the previous administration is out of office, that doesn't mean that they should not be accountable for that particular facility. There are so many projects from Accra to Hamili in the north that were started by previous administrations, and the moment they exit, it literally goes waste. Meanwhile, we have sunk millions into these projects. Look at the nonsense that is going on Saglemi. We have already sunk 200 million in that facility, and for 10 years there is no occupants. There are so many projects all over like that, all over. From Accra to Hamili, we have spent millions. And you ask yourself whether it makes even any sense to have a National Development Planning Commission with a CEO and staff who are paid every month. Whether it makes any sense to have it. Because if a political party is going to come to power and have plans to start anything, and just because they exit, we can't decide what to do with the facility and allow it to rot at our expense, then questions need to be asked and answers need to be provided. Questions need to be asked and answers need to be provided, because this is very unfair to you and me. It is our taxpayers' money. I don't care about your allegiances with political party A or political party B. That one is up to you. But there's nothing like NDC tax and NPP tax. It is you and I who pay the taxes, and our leaders are supposed to supervise the utilization of these taxes. So if this is how they are spending our taxes, then we must rise up and speak against it. It is a shame. For those of you who live in Koforidua and its environs, go there and go and see it for yourself. It is a shame. And it's not just there. Even here in Accra, there are so many facilities all over. Go to the Ashanti region, go to the Volta region. The other day I saw pictures of the whole airport. I didn't even know what to say. Go to the Central region, go to Western region, go to Western North, Bunu East, Ahafu. Go there. Project after project after project. Started sometimes 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 18 years ago, 17 years ago, and they are just there. Meanwhile, millions have already been sunk into those projects, and they are just there rotting away. It is not their money. It is not their personal funds. So they don't care. One of the questions I always ask politicians and people in charge of our funds is that if these were to be their private companies, would this be how they would run it? I'm sure we all know the answer.
Class 91.3 FM.